Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast. And what a week for the Seattle Seahawks. They start this game with crazy plays. A Jackson Smith-Njigba 43-yard touchdown to start. The defense says, oh, I could do you one better. Sack force fumble by Tyrese Knight with Demarcus Lawrence recovering it for a touchdown. And then, of course, Sam Darnold just feels good. Everybody's feeling good. George Halani gets involved in action as well with the third TD of the game. And the fourth TD of the game, I had to rewind my TV, Mitchell. I had to rewind, fast forward, rewind, because the fourth TD looked a lot similar to the second TD. Tyrese Knight forced fumble as Jacoby Brissett's passing the football for another Demarcus Lawrence recovery for yet another Seahawks touchdown. I mean, at this point, it's 28-0. Seahawks can do no wrong. It's just their day. And that's when things kind of start falling apart a little bit. They start going off the rails. The Seahawks were in total control. The defense is playing well. The offense is playing well. They lose their center, Sundale, for who knows, hopefully not an extended amount of time. But there's a fumbled exchange between Sam Darnold and the new center that leads to a turnover after the defense had just forced a huge turnover on downs. Nick Emmanwori almost had an interception. They had a phenomenal goal line stand. It just was exciting. They're up. They're playing good football. The defense is playing energetic. Then you have that miscue by the offense backed up in their own territory. Gives the Arizona Cardinals their first touchdown of the game. But still, it just was a dominant performance by the Seahawks that just was marred a little bit by some sloppy play in the third quarter, really, mostly. Jackson Smith-Njigba, congratulations on a 1,000-yard season. He's the first receiver to hit 1,000 this season. He looks like he should be up for Offensive Player of the Year, but you know how it goes, Mitchell. They won't give MVP to Jonathan Taylor, so with him at 15 touchdowns already, and I know everybody's like, oh, well, Saquon had 13 touchdowns and he had so many runs inside the 5 that were taken by the tush push. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Don't give it to the tush push then and give it to Saquon and he gets MVP. What the Colts are doing, and he's lost a couple to Daniel Jones and him keeping it inside the 5, but he has 15 rushing touchdowns on the season. Two receiving touchdowns, but we'll get there later. But that's why I don't think Jackson Smith-Njigba will win Offensive Player of the Year, because they won't give. If they give Jonathan Taylor MVP, then yes, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba has a case for Offensive Player of the Year. The cool part about this game for me was the running game for the Seattle Seahawks finally got going. Zach Charbonnet, 14 carries for 83 yards. K9, 14 carries for 67 yards. The defense had 5 sacks and the 2 touchdowns. Demarcus Lawrence, we talked about it earlier, a 2 fumble recovery for touchdowns. Mike McDonald. I really want to talk about the secondary too, because I don't want to leave without that. A lot of PBUs back there, but shout out to Reek Woolen. Played at an incredibly high level this game. Had a lot of controversy and adversity throughout this season. Fans calling for him to get traded. His name attached to trade rumors. Early on, there was what appeared to be a benching, maybe a half benching, a partial benching, but he's responded in a beautiful way, playing fantastic football. Nick Emmanwori continues to grow as a player, impacting the game in all the phases. He's rushing and passer well. Had a few PBUs, great coverage on McBride, who's been one of the best tight ends in the National Football League, one of the most productive tight ends in the National Football League. And you saw him with tight coverage on him. Tyrese Knight playing Mike linebacker in Ernest Jones' stead. I mean, obviously his best game of his career as a professional. And it's just a lot of trust and a lot of cool plays. The Seattle Seahawks win. Sam Darnold was 10 of 12 for 178, the touchdown, the interception. He did have 2 fumbles. The interception was off of A.J. Barner's head, I think, a helmet, and it was just a weird play. And those were the turnovers for the Seattle Seahawks. They weren't like just bad plays or bad thoughts, just unnecessary and unforced. But I don't think it does anything to make you feel awful about this win. This is a huge win. This team is playing great football. They look like the best team in the National Football League, along with the Indianapolis Colts. And I know everybody's like, what about the Eagles? What about the Rams? I hear you. I understand. I know those teams exist and they're playing good football as well, but I'm just telling you what I see. I look forward to the game next week. The Seattle Seahawks play the LA Rams. That's going to be the game of the week. That's going to tell the tale. Are the Rams who you think they are, or the Seahawks who they think they are? Is this newfound running game real against this really stingy and aggressive Rams defense who had their way with the San Francisco 49ers? And we'll get to that game. But yeah, the Cardinals look like they're going to be in the quarterback market next season. Obviously, they've been without their high paid quarterback Kyler Murray. They sent him to IR just in time for the new Call of Duty. No question about it. I'm sure he's excited about that, ecstatic about that. Call of Duty's coming out, and he doesn't have to deal with the headache of being criticized because of it. We know his record after Call of Duty comes out. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But a solid game for Jacoby Brissett, 22 of 44, 258. Obviously, 50% completion percentage isn't great in the National Football League, but he did have the 2 touchdowns. He had the 2 fumbles, was under duress the entire game. Those 2 fumbles led to touchdown. So I take that back. It wasn't a solid game. Terrible game. But just a rough game for the team overall, and they just looked overmatched. Like I said, the Cardinals have the 49ers next week, and the Seahawks have a huge game against the Rams. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Richard, today I debut my Seattle Seahawks throwback hat.
Oh, that's clean.
It is clean. It's very clean, but I was waiting to debut it until I was convinced that this was one of the top teams in football. You have marked them as number 1 in your power ranks, and I saw it, but I thought, man, Richard's biased. And I think you can understand why I thought you were biased, the former Seahawk yourself. But, Richard, what I saw today in that opening quarter, holy cow, that might have just been the best team in football. And you called it coming into the season. You said you saw a different energy in the building, a different life in that building. Obviously, Mike McDonald, as years go by and he enters his second season with this team, he's starting to form a new identity. They've got an embarrassment of riches on this team. And I saw a report, I don't know if it was true or not, but I guess Boye Mafe was being discussed in trade rumors, and they could have gone to KC at the trade deadline. And you have to scratch your head and wonder why. Well, the reason why is because Seattle, again, they have an embarrassment of riches. They're going to have to discuss in this offseason who they pay and who they let walk. And that is a good thing for the now, because Seattle has so many good players, Richard, that I'm here to tell you, I still think I called it in our first episode of this season. I think the LA Rams are going to win this division. I know I'm going to get some squawk in the comment section from that. I just love what I see from Matthew Stafford. But that's not to express, disdain for the Seattle Seahawks, because they have far exceeded my expectations. I think Seattle's back. I think they're ready to. They're a force to be reckoned with. Sam Darnold is here to stay. Talk about an upgrade at the quarterback position, Richard. I thought everyone just thought, hey, Geno Smith's leaving, enter Sam Darnold, a 1-for-1 equal swap trade. At least we didn't lose any ground at that QB position. Well, not so fast. It looks to me that you guys have upgraded exponentially at that position, and he's given life to this team. Just wait till Rashid Shaheed gets going there, because that's another vertical threat that the Seattle Seahawks are going to introduce. When you couple him with JSN, I mean, my goodness, the guy in a blowout win almost has another 100-yard game. I mean, when you're up 35-0 or whatever it was, a quarter and a half into the game, you expect them to lean on the run game. You expect Zach Charbonnet to get his yards. You expect K9 to get his yards. Richard, let's go back to that defense. Demarcus Lawrence, when he left Dallas this offseason, he threw some shade at Jerry Jones. He said, I want to go win a Super Bowl. And I think everyone kind of scratched their head and said, if you want to go win a Super Bowl, why are you going to Seattle? Well, hey, maybe he was right, because this Seattle Seahawks team looks like they could be a force to be reckoned with in this NFC. And Richard, I believe in you. I endorse your positioning of them at number 1 in your power ranks.
Well, thank you.
I think you might have been a week early, personally, but That's why I'm sporting the Seattle Seahawks cap. They've earned it from me. Richard, I think you got a heck of a team in Seattle, my friend.
Mitchell, it's better to be early than late. That's what my coaches always said. And I'm better. It's better to be lucky than good. And I'd rather be good and lucky, though. But I feel great about the Seattle Seahawks team, the depth at the defensive line. Again, you talked about an embarrassment of riches. But Rashid Shaheed is only going to open up this running game. And I expect the running game to open up because of him. I expect him to be a huge weapon against the LA Rams next week. I expect him, Clint Kubiak, to draw up some cool plays for him this week because of their relationship in New Orleans and everything they did there. I look forward to seeing how that goes, and I can't wait for that matchup. I think the Seattle Seahawks defense and secondary is gelling in a big time way. I think they're playing their best football. This was one of their best games. A lot of PBUs, a lot of breakups, just a lot of swag. And I like this. Have you seen the receivers doing this ISO thing, Mitchell? It's like the new celebration, like the ISO thing from basketball. It's like an ISO play. It's what Kobe used to be in the triangle. He used to say, "I'm breaking the triangle, like I'm going rogue." And I wish they were doing that because I'd do the whole comeback like he getting clamped. But that's a story for a different
Richard,
day. Now it's time.
I'm still trying to figure out what 6'7" means. You're throwing up these signs. I don't know what any of this stuff means, man. Maybe I'm just getting too old here, but
Richard, we're all getting too old.
Richard, but like you talked about, they got a huge game next week in LA. And let's talk about LA because I know you're San Francisco 49ers, and I saw the hat swap to the San Francisco 49er lid looking very clean. They took on the LA Rams today, and unfortunately, LA got the best of them. Talk to me about this game. Matthew Stafford just looks dynamite. I mean, the guy, I don't know if he's ever going to leave this league because he seems to be playing the best football he ever has. I loved him here in Detroit, but you see new life in him in LA, and this team looks competitive as all get out. 7-2 now with a huge win on the road against the 49ers. Talk to me about this game. And I'm going to switch it back to my Lions hat, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that, Mitch. I appreciate the support.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, you got to give Matthew Stafford a ton of credit. Another 4-touchdown game for him. He had another. He's leading the league in passing touchdowns right now. At his age, I think he's 39 right now. It's a testament to who he is. They lost Devontae Adams late in this game with what appeared to be a tight back. He looked like he was poised to go back in potentially if they needed him to, but Puka Nacua made some huge clutch plays down the stretch for this team. And you got to give them a ton of credit. The San Francisco 49ers defense just looked, I don't know what else to say about it. Uninspired is as kind as I can put it, as nice as I can put it. They were the only team to get a sack in this game, and it was a split between Kalia Davis and Keon White. I think Keon White looks like a good addition. When you get Nicholas John Bosa back, you get Fred Warner back, you potentially get another piece back, Mikael Williams back. I think he's going to fit in nicely, and he's going to look even better than he does now. I think that's a huge pickup for the future with the San Francisco 49ers. I thought Ben Barch looked good. I thought Spencer Buford is playing really well next to Trent Williams. And I talked to Trent Williams before the first Rams game, and he told me how hard Spencer Buford had been working, how much confidence he had in him, how excited he was to see him back on the field and see him get an opportunity. And he's done a lot with his opportunity. The offensive line did not allow a sack today. That's one positive note. I'm trying to find some silver lining for the San Francisco 49ers fans. The offensive line didn't allow a sack against a very aggressive LA Rams front, very dynamic. The offense moved the ball really well. If it wasn't for, again, it's a game of inches. If it wasn't for a play here, a play there, there was a fumble by Juwan Jennings. There was a turnover on downs earlier in this game, and it allowed the Rams to get out into a lead that ended up being insurmountable. But I thought Mac Jones, again, played really good football. 33 of 39, 319 to 3 touchdowns and an interception that got tipped up. With him, it was a play he had to have. He had to let the ball go. It was a 4th down. He had to put the ball in harm's way, and Emmanuel Forbes made a great play on it. But I don't think it does anything to shake the confidence of Kyle Shanahan and him. And I think there is a little bit of a quarterback controversy. And I'm not even trying to be controversial. I love Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is the guy in San Francisco. But there is something about a hot hand and guys playing, you know what I mean, and knocking off the rust. And there aren't many games where you feel comfortable saying, hey, this is a game we feel like we can knock the rust off. This is a game we put somebody in and knock the rust off. San Francisco 49ers are 6-4, and the NFC is as competitive as it's ever been. I mean, you look at the Bears are fighting; they're 5-3 right now, and they're finding ways to win. You look at the Eagles, only two losses. You look at Seattle Seahawks in their own division, the Rams in their own division with only two losses. So it's starting to get to that time, even with the winning record, where it's desperation time, and the San Francisco 49ers are going to have to answer the call. The run game has been stagnant. Obviously, they were down for a lot of this game, so a lot of the onus was on Mac Jones. He missed a potential touchdown pass to Demarcus Robinson early actually late in the second half, like right before halftime. They were on a 2-minute drive, and he ran a post. Tom Brady made it apparent to everybody that nobody was above. It was a quarters beater. They had him. Mac missed it. He ended up throwing a completion to Juwan Jennings, but that was a missed opportunity that they had to have. But I don't know. I don't know what the 49ers are going to do. I think they could justify bringing Brock Purdy back just because the team lost. But it's not because Mac Jones didn't play good enough. And I think he's making himself a lot of money. I think there's a chance he has a big market for him next offseason. I think the Arizona Cardinals will call. The Jets will call. Depends on what happens in some of the other quarterback situations, but a number of guys would be calling for Mac Jones because he fits well in a number of these schemes. And I'm looking forward to seeing that for him because he deserves it. He's been playing at a really high level, and he deserves a chance to start in this league, and he looks like a starting caliber player. George Kittle made a big impact today and fought all the way into the very end, and you can appreciate that. But they got to find some help, and it's hard. It's hard because there were a lot of open receivers this game, and it wasn't even on a play where it looked like they had Matthew Stafford corralled. Guys coming off guys late in the down, and Matthew finding them. They're coming off tight ends in the end zone and allowing Matthew Stafford to throw his 400th touchdown of his career, only the ninth quarterback to have done so in his career. But I don't know. I don't know what the answers are on defense. You can only bring so much pressure. You can only blitz. That's not an answer. And Matthew Stafford found guys just about every time the San Francisco 49ers blitzed in this game. So it's tough. It's tough because you don't necessarily have enough talent to go man to man and bring pressure like you want to. The guys you need to be out there are injured. Your best players are on injured reserve. And anytime that's the case, it's going to be tough on you. So. But the next the next 3 games are winnable games for the San Francisco 49ers, and then a bye week, a chance to reset. They play the Arizona Cardinals coming off a drubbing from the Seattle Seahawks. Then they play the Carolina Panthers, who've been playing better football, but San Francisco should be able to win that game. And then a Browns team that is going to be picking very high in the draft. So if they can get these 3 heading into the bye, they'll feel really good about themselves and feel really good going forward. So it feels like all is lost after a game like this, but it's not. It's not. You can go into the bye 9-4 and with a renewed energy and feeling like there's a chance for this team, even with all the debilitating injuries that this team has suffered. So it's one game at a time from this from this point on.
No question about it. The one thing about the San Francisco 49ers, it's kind of reminds me of what the Detroit Lions went through last year with all the injuries on one side of the ball, specifically defensively for the Niners. They're going to have to outscore teams, and they're going to have to lean on their offense, and they're going to have to score in bunches if they have any hopes of winning this division and doing anything in the playoffs. There's no question about it. They have the offensive weapons to be able to do it. I don't know the standings of Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, if they can get past the bye week, bring him back, he adds an extra spark to that offense. But games like this are going to happen, especially against a high-profile quarterback and a high-profile offense like the LA Rams. Like you said, these next 3 games are very winnable. If they can go into the bye at 9-4, and who knows what's going to happen? The Rams and Seahawks play each other next week. Someone's going to take a loss. So I think this division's still open for them. They just have got to get hot offensively quick. But Richard, I want to talk a little bit more about the LA Rams before we leave this game. This NFC's very crowded right now. There's a lot of good teams in this NFC, and there's a lot of teams winning a lot of games. Where do you see LA stacking up against the rest of them? I know you love your Seattle Seahawks, but I mean, talk to me, man. You see Matthew Stafford playing his A game constantly, week in and week out. That's got to give you some pause going into next week against the Seattle Seahawks. And I guess we'll end up seeing what happens on the field. But I mean, these guys are contenders in my eyes. Do you see the same thing with LA Rams?
Yeah, they're definitely contenders. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But no, doesn't give me any pause at all. Not for the Seattle Seahawks fans. If I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, I feel really good about my team going into this matchup. I feel really good about this defensive line. I feel really good about this defensive line. I feel good about how Sam Darnold's playing. I feel like we may have the best receiver in the National Football League right now in
No
Jackson
question.
Smith and Jigba. I feel good about our depth at receiver, getting Shaheed involved next week, and even just the fear and the preparation that it takes when you have a guy with that kind of speed. The Rams are going to have to account for him. There are certain you're not going to play quarters. If you play quarters in the first quarter against the Seattle Seahawks, expect Rashid Shaheed to have his first touchdown early in that game. There were opportunities for the San Francisco 49ers to have it. I expect the Seattle Seahawks to expose those same traits and take advantage of it. So I think the Rams feel good. The Rams look really good. Stafford looks like the MVP of the league right now behind Jonathan Taylor. But I still think there's question marks on that defense. They're playing great, but to not get a sack against this San Francisco 49ers offensive line that has given up a number of sacks this season should be a little troubling. We'll see how this game goes. You never know. Every game's a new experience this year. It's hard to predict anything. Every time you think you got a team pegged, they do something ridiculous to have you scratching your head, and that's every single team. You got the Indianapolis Colts. You feel like they're kings of the world. Then they turn the ball over 6 times against the Steelers and lose. You think the Seattle Seahawks, are the kings of the world. They have a shootout at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a good team, but they lose. And then you have the Rams lose to an undermanned 49ers team, and they turn around and beat them this time, but they lost to them at home. That gives you pause. I feel like every team has had that kind of loss. The Buffalo Bills, there's a number of losses, but their loss today is the most troubling of the season, no question about it. It leaves you with a lot more questions than answers. So if there's anybody sitting there saying, I know who's going to make the Super Bowl this year, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, or it's the Buffalo Bills, or it's the Eagles, who lost to the Jackson Dart and the boys in New York not too long ago, then I don't think you know what you're talking about, because there's no predicting anything this year. The only thing predictable about this season is the unpredictability of it. Today's show is brought to you by a new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. It's a great week to try out the Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app, because there's so much going on. Not just football, there's NBA, college hoops, and hockey all share the stage too. There's always something to bet on. If you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet yet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. And if you're looking for an edge before you lock in, check out the Hard Rock Bet Sports Hub. It's loaded with trends, streaks, and stats to help guide your picks. Numbers don't lie, and neither does the data in there. The Hard Rock Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida, and it's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado. Coming soon to more states too. And they must not play a lot of defense at the Hard Rock Bet, because y'all are racking up promos nonstop. You can find new promos daily on the app. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and try your first bet today.
You're spot on. I mean, it seems like it's open for anyone that wants it. I mean, we saw the Detroit Lions, and let's talk about the Detroit Lions. They had a stinker of a game last week against the Minnesota Vikings. They played a decent game, but ultimately J.J. McCarthy, his coming back to Michigan party worked out in his favor big time with that win. And Detroit needed to respond. And this was a team, the Washington Commanders, that took them out last year in the divisional round of the playoffs. And you knew the Detroit Lions were going to come for blood today, and they did just that. They handled this game right from the jump. Richard, before we get into the meat of this game, I mean, I'm just curious, how many NFL games have ended 44-22? Because we saw two of them end 44-22 in the 4 o'clock hour with the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals finishing 44-22. So anyone who, plays the whole scoreagami thing or whatever the heck they call it, I mean, you see two in the 4 o'clock hour, that's pretty random. But Richard, this Detroit Lions team, they finally looked like they were back offensively. Dan Campbell took the reins as OC today. Johnny Morton, there's been a lot of questions about him, about the O-line, about, this run game, about, converting more on third down. And we saw the Detroit Lions of last year show up today. Jared Goff, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs has an amazing day, 142, 2 touchdowns, and 6 receptions for another 119 yards and a touchdown. And then they talked about it ad nauseum. Going into the last 2 weeks, they're going to get Jamison Williams involved, and they did just that. 6 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. Richard, this team looked to me like they're ready for the Philadelphia Eagles, who they got next week. I want to know your thoughts on the Detroit Lions. Do you think that they are back? Because at one point in time this season, they were number one in your power ranks, and I know they're no longer in those power ranks, but I got to believe you saw something today that you might have just liked.
I just don't. I see a lot of things that I like from the Detroit Lions because they're a talented football team. They should be doing this thing. But the thing that gives me a ton of pause with this team is the Jekyll and Hyde nature of them.
Yep.
You look at them against the Kansas City Chiefs, you say, not a contender. Then you see them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a good team, and you're like, oh, there they are. There they are. There's a contender. There's a team that were Super Bowl favorites last year. And then you see them against the Minnesota Vikings in their own division versus J.J. McCarthy, who's coming off the injury. And you're like, not so fast, my friend. And so that's why I'm not going to be fooled again. You fool me once, shame on me. You know what I mean? Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times, chuck the peace sign. You know what I mean? Load the chopper. Man. Yeah, sorry. That's a story for a different day, Mitchell. But I'm not going to let a win versus an underman and less talented Washington Commanders team without their starting quarterback really pushed me over the edge. A win against the Philadelphia Eagles will do that. It will be the remedy I need, and that will tell me everything I need to know. A loss against the Philadelphia Eagles will leave them right in this middle ground of I don't know. I don't know who they are, Mitchell, because it doesn't seem like they know who they are. Some games they want to play really great defense like they did against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a high-powered offense, and hold them to 9 points. And then other days they want to give 30 up to the Kansas City Chiefs. So or give 24 up to the Bengals. And so I don't know. I don't know what you're going to get from that defense. I know this offense and Jared Goff are going to be productive. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like one of the best players in the National Football League, not just one of the best running backs. Jamison Williams had one of his best games as a pro today, 6 receptions for 119 and a touchdown. He's finding his way. The defense had 2 sacks. But consistency. And I'm sure Dan Campbell is preaching the same thing. Do it again. Do it again, and you'll be telling us something. You play the Eagles next week. That's your chance to prove your point.
What do you make of Dan Campbell calling the plays? I mean, there was some folks here in Detroit that are questioning Johnny Morton. They love Kelvin Shepard, the defensive coordinator, but this new OC, transition from Ben Johnson to John Morton has not worked out the way people wanted it to. Now we see Dan Campbell take over the play calling again. This happened before. This happened before when Dan Campbell first got to Detroit. He took over the play calling for the OC then, and then the OC ended up getting fired. I'm not saying that Johnny Morton should lose his job by no means. I think it's a learning curve that he's going through, and I think he's done a competent job. But what do you make of Dan Campbell taking over these play calls?
Well, he's putting the onus on himself, and obviously he feels like he can make a difference. But I'm old enough to remember the 52 points against the Chicago Bears. I'm old enough to remember when they put up 38 against the Ravens in primetime, and it was a
Yep.
freaking great, and everybody's singing his praises. But this is a what have you done for me lately league. And lately it was a tough game versus the Minnesota Vikings. And that's enough for Dan Campbell to say, hey, I'll take it from here. I don't know if it's an indictment on Morton. Sometimes people are just not ready for the moment, but let's not act like they haven't had immense success with him at the helm. I want to give Lions fans that little bit of perspective. Sure, you can go away from him and choose that, but let's not act like he hasn't called some really good games this season.
No question about it. Richard, you already touched on it. The Buffalo Bills. I mean, I don't even know how this happens. I had penciled the Buffalo Bills into the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. And right now, I question whether they're even going to make the playoffs. I mean, we've seen them really struggle in random games this year. And we see it today. They got absolutely dominated by the Miami Dolphins, who seemingly have nothing to play for with the exception of their head coach's job. And Devon Achane ran wild on them all day. Tua, not nothing great statistically, but 2 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle with a big touchdown catch in this game. And defensively, they were all over the place. 2 forced fumbles, an interception, 3 sacks. Josh Allen, where is this MVP Josh Allen? Because the guy has been struggling, and I don't know what it is with this Bills team, but maybe you can add some, enlighten me a bit, because how does this happen? Because I thought the Buffalo Bills were the upper echelon of this league, but right now they're looking very mid-tier.
Yeah, and that's the way they've looked the majority of this season, but they've got away with it because James Cook has played at a high level. And I think they have gone as James Cook has gone, because if you look at statistically, Josh Allen, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had the 2 turnovers, the interception and the fumble. But you would say Josh Allen did his part. But usually you see James Cook with 100 yards, 150 yards, and them controlling the game. The opposite was true today. Devin Achane, or it felt like he wanted the challenge. He feels like when he plays against James Cook, he feels like it's a personal matchup and he wants to outplay him. And he did that today. 22 carries for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the reason they were able to control this game from start to finish. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa, 15-21, did have the 2 touchdowns and the 2 interceptions, but their defense, give the Miami defense a ton of credit. Excuse me. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, our guy Deshaun Shedd, they had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and the interception. They have felt all season that they were right there on the cusp. They felt like if their offense could just give them some possessions. No defense does well being on the field 75% of the game. Not one defense, Mitchell. Nobody does well being on the field 75% of the time. But if you can get a running game and you can give the defense some breaks, you can score some touchdowns, give them a lead and allow them to play, then you look at your pass rushers and they get hot. You look at their secondary, they start playing better. You look at your defense and it's easier to get stops. Jalen Waddle, 5 receptions for 84 yards. There was rumors about the Bills trying to trade for him before the game. I'm sure the Miami Dolphins were like, sure, you want to see him up close and personal again? We will showcase him today. And that's what they did. And that was cool. But the Buffalo Bills being shut out in the first half of this game, that's a head scratcher. For me, this is too good of a team, too talented. They put too much money into this team. But certain moves you look at and you're like bringing back Gabe Davis. You're like, oh, you don't feel good about your receiving core right now. It's something that's been the case in Buffalo for a long time. Everybody was happy to hear Stephon Diggs is getting out of town, and you don't need a number 1, and you can do it by committee. No, you cannot. You want to hear it again? No, you cannot. The receiver by committee thing does not work in this league. It works good enough for the regular season. You'll get a couple wins, but you need a guy. And big dogs. You need big dogs. And a big dog eats first. And eats all the time. You see the receivers with big dogs in critical situations, guess where they go? Mitchell, you guessed it, big dogs. And when you don't have a big dog, like the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers, you don't know where you're going. You have no rhythm with guys. The quarterback's like, hey, I can go anywhere with it or nowhere. And that's what happens in these big games. You run into teams where you're like, Hey, we don't got to cover anybody. We're going to play great. We're going to pressure your quarterback. We're going to make you play left-handed and see if you can beat us with the guys you say you can beat us with. And they weren't able to today. They weren't able to against the New England Patriots. There's been too many games where it just looked like they were outmatched. And they're supposed to be the more talented team where their receivers could not get open. And they're supposed to be the more talented team where their defense couldn't get a stop. And you look at games where their defense plays better and they play at a high level, and you're looking at the secondary like, oh, they're making plays. And then games like this where you're like, there's a glaring weakness on this team, and it'll be exploited in the playoffs if they don't fix it.
It might be too late to fix it, Richard. I don't know where they're going to turn to. I mean, Keon Coleman, I loved him at Michigan State, but he struggled getting open. He struggles creating separation. I mean, right now their go-to guy is Khalil Shakir, who's more of a slot guy. We saw Dalton Kincaid lead their team in receiving yards last week, who's a tight end. You're absolutely right. I mean, we saw this. We'll talk about him next, but like you see this with middling teams, with teams that are the lower tier of this NFL. You see this with the New England Patriots last year, who had absolutely no one to throw to. You already said it. I mean, the Green Bay Packers, that's going to be their Achilles heel. They got a bunch of number 2 wideouts, and unfortunately, their top guy, their top dog, their tight end, goes out for the season with an ACL injury. Now, who are they going to lean on? You know, Christian Watson, who's coming off the ACL, that's a question mark. But yeah, I mean, with the Buffalo Bills team, there's no firepower. Their firepower is their quarterback, and their firepower is their running back. But I don't know who their quarterback's going to throw to. And if they're not throwing the football, then it's going to be a heck of a lot harder for James Cook to run wild. We're going to see more of these games like this year from them, I'm afraid. And we saw it early with them getting taken down at home by the New England Patriots, and everyone was scratching their heads. But don't look now. And let's talk about this New England Patriot team is 8-2, Richard, and they have not been tested outside of that Buffalo Bills game. This was their first major test since that game on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are one of the better teams in this league, and they took care of business. It came down to the wire late, but the New England Patriots were up multiple scores late in this game.
Right.
And
Right.
Drake May, he continues to impress. Richard, before we get into this game, I want to talk about Drake May. This guy's in his second year in this league, and it looks like the New England Patriots quickly found another gem at quarterback in Drake May. Where do you rank him, in this quarterback hierarchy right now? I know we talked about it previously, but is he a top 10 guy in your eyes?
Oh, no question about it. He's a top 10 guy. And we hear this all the time. The top 4 guys, they play musical chairs, and it's either Burrow's the top guy one year, and it's Josh Allen, then it's Lamar, of course. And then it's, of course, Mahomes, you can never forget about, who's having a really good season this year. But they don't leave room for other quarterbacks to move into that sphere. And I don't subscribe to that. I think there are other guys playing at a very high level this year, Matthew Stafford being included. And Matthew Stafford gets his name mentioned in that conversation, top 5 sometimes, as he should. You hear them putting names in it like Herbert, and I've heard Trevor Lawrence before. But I want guys, Stroud has been in that conversation. Drake May is cemented himself into that conversation this year. He was 16 of 31, 270 and 2 touchdowns, and a lot of people would say this was one of his worst games. This was one of his worst games of the season. And they were able to beat a really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Their defense had 2 sacks. Stephon Diggs had 5 receptions, 46 yards, and a touchdown. But it was the guy, Trey Henderson, 14 carries, 147, and 2 touchdowns. Did you see the play at the end, Mitchell, when he was looking to the sideline and saying, hey, do y'all need me to go down or not? You talk about having poise, the rookie having that kind of poise, that kind of wherewithal during the game to say, hey, y'all need me to go down? No? You score? All right,
I'll keep running.
I love it. I love it. It's a young team, and I love it for Mike Vrabel. I love it for Mike Vrabel, and I love it for the Tennessee Titans, because that's what you get, you idiots. You let go of Mike Vrabel for no reason, a guy who was doing things right, bringing competitive teams, putting together competitive teams, while they were constantly trading away his best players, traded away Derrick Henry, traded away all day, always open, A.J. Brown, and he found a way to keep those teams as competitive as you can when you're losing guys like that. Now he gets to New England. They're supporting him. He has his defense playing at a high level. They're scrappy. They're competitive. They're really embodying who Mike Vrabel was as a player. Just scrappy, doing stuff right, like gonna fight and scratch and claw to the very end. They're well coached. They're running the football well. And then you got Drake May with this receiving core that are finding ways, whether it's Booty, whether it's Diggs. They're getting it from Douglas. They're getting it from a number of guys, and it's really cool to see because we talked about this Tampa Bay team. They've been a top 5 team on most people's power rankings, not mine. I know some things, but they've been playing well, even despite all the injuries. They lost their franchise's best receiver and Mike Evans to a clavicle injury early in the season, halfway through the season. His first season without 1,000 yards, and that's a big loss. But they've been playing good football. They're a veteran team with veteran players that know how to win in this league. And they were able to keep Baker Mayfield in check. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns in the game, but some of them happened late, and stats aren't always indicative of how the game went. The Patriots were pretty much in control most of this game. They have a light schedule, an easier schedule. They got the Jets, Bengals, and Giants coming up. So they could potentially be a number 1 seed and have it wrapped up before season's end because of how easy their schedule is. And that's crazy.
It's wild. I mean, we were just talking about it before we jumped on here. I know they're in a battle with the Indianapolis Colts for this 1 seed, but if you really look at their schedule, I would assume they've got to be betting favorites to finish as the 1 seed because, dude, they're going to be I'm sorry. There's no way they lose a game in their next 3 the way they're playing football right now against the Jets, Bengals, or Giants. They're going to be walking in 11-2. That is unheard of for this New England Patriots team coming off the seasons that they've had in the last 3 years post Tom Brady. So for them, they found new life. We're going to see what happens when they face the big boys, but we saw them face a top-tier opponent in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers today, and they met the match and met the challenge. But we talked about briefly the Indianapolis Colts, and I know you were alluding to it early in this podcast. They went across the pond and took care of the Atlanta Falcons, and they rise to 8-2 this season. The acquisition of Sauce Gardner has that city on fire, and they deserve to be. I mean, this team, holy cow, Jonathan Taylor, what is going on with him? 244 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you were jumping into this conversation earlier, but we got to fully dive into it. To me, if he does not win the MVP, something is wrong with the MVP voting because there's no player more dominant in football right now than him. And there's no player that means more to their team right now than Jonathan Taylor. This team is 8-2 for a reason, and it's because that man is an absolute juggernaut every Sunday. Richard, what are your thoughts on the Indianapolis Colts and their performance today against the Atlanta Falcons?
I thought it was another dominant offensive performance by the Indianapolis Colts. You give Daniel Jones a lot of credit because people said he turned into a pumpkin last week. The old Daniel Jones. He leads the league in yards, passing yards right now. And he's finding a way to put this team in position. Yes, we got to give Jonathan Taylor. He has to turn around and hand it off. He handed it off 32 times to Jonathan Taylor for 244 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. I mean, an incredible move in that overtime to really get him the touchdown, to score that touchdown. He's just an incredible player. And we talk about Saquon Barkley last year and all the greatness that he was and the 2,000 yards rushing. Jonathan Taylor's on track to surpass that. He's already surpassed the amount of touchdowns, rushing touchdowns that Saquon had last year. Saquon had 13 for the season. And I know Eagles fans, we know about tush push. We know you guys love it sometimes, but you don't love it in this Saquon discussion. But nobody cares. Nobody cares if you tush pushed it 11, 12 times and he would have had 26 touchdowns. He didn't. You should have gave it to him those times. So he could have had 26 touchdowns, and we'd be talking about him in the MVP and strengthen the argument. But the Indianapolis Colts are giving him the ball, and Jonathan Taylor's making long runs and converting them, scoring touchdown after touchdown, 15 touchdowns, rushing on the season, 17 overall with the 2 receiving touchdowns. And it's just been dominant. It's not like he's getting it and they're already dominating the game. These are critical situations. They don't win this game without him. He gets the game clinching touchdown. When you got to give him credit where it's due. He had an 83-yard touchdown in this game, and he's having MVP type impact. And I know Matthew Stafford deserves to be in the discussion. Let's not make any disrespect to Matthew Stafford, but this guy's playing at a high level and deserves to be recognized, and I'm tired of it just going to quarterbacks. It's not fair because you cannot tell me there's more that Jonathan Taylor could be doing. You cannot tell me there's more that he could be doing for his team. And if there's not more that he could be doing for his team, a team that nobody expected to be in this position, nobody expected the Indianapolis Colts to be amongst the top teams in the National Football League, 8-2. With a game coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs, where I would guess they'd be favored. If you told me before the season that we'd be looking at an Indianapolis Colts team where even their fans weren't happy when Daniel Jones was named the starter, would be going against a Chiefs team with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid still in the helm and Chris Jones healthy, and they'd go in there favored, I'd say you done lost your damn mind. That's what I would say. But that's the case right now. And it's because of a lot of things. Let's not say it's all because of Jonathan Taylor, but Jonathan Taylor is a huge part of it. Lou Anarumo in this defense is another part of that. Daniel Jones playing at a high level is another piece of that. But the biggest piece right now is Jonathan Taylor, and that's why he deserves the most valuable player in the National Football League.
Well, you look at the secondary pieces too. I mean, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, obviously Downs on the outside. And then they plucked a tight end in the draft that probably should have been the first tight end taken in this draft, but he slipped past the Chicago Bears, who took Colston Loveland. And that's Tyler Warren. I mean, this is Daniel Jones' safety blanket underneath. 8 catches for 99 yards. He looks like the next great thing at the tight end position. So the Colts are doing a lot of things right now, including drafting. Obviously, their analysis of the quarterback position with Daniel Jones, it's going to give this team life for years to come. Indianapolis has got to be fired up to have a team that's their best team since Peyton Manning played football there. So we'll see.
Let me talk about this.
Go ahead.
One more thing, because I don't think people are understanding what I'm saying about this Sauce Gardner trade. I really don't. Like, it's almost like people haven't been watching football. Like, have you ever watched the Lou Anarumo defense? Like, he's been coaching for a long time. Have you watched his defense? How many times have they lived in man-to-man? Not many. And I'm arguing with fans that are sitting there like, oh, yeah, Sauce is going to be – we're going to play all man-to-man. Is this Rex Ryan that we're talking about? Is this Belichick? No. Like, is this Spags? No. Lou Anarumo calls a scheme as he has always called it. Sure, there'll be some man-to-man sprinkled in there. Might even be some on third down. Most teams play man on third down. But Sauce Gardner is a really effective corner in man-to-man. He can, if you put him in front of somebody, he can pretty much eliminate him. I'm sure, he'll have some good plays and some bad. The other guys get paid too. They'll have some catches, but he can be really effective. But when you put him in a scheme that's vision, like there's vision, it's cover 3. A guy, understand, I played some cover 3. I understand it. Some would call me an expert at it. Some would call me an expert at zone defense. I can play man-to-man as well. But at zone defense, vision on the quarterback, there aren't many quarterbacks that would look me in the eye and throw the ball. And there's a reason for that, because I would take it. And so when you got a guy like Sauce Gardner, who's a phenomenal man-to-man corner, and you put him in a zone defense, and you put him in front of guys, like you're like, oh, his matchup's Drake London, but then Kyle Pitts, they stagger it, and Kyle Pitts gets up first and runs a post to pull Sauce Gardner out of there. And then you got a matchup with Drake London on a linebacker. Then you traded 2 first-round picks for a guy who can't impact the plays in the way you want him to. There's nothing Sauce does wrong right there. He's covering, he's playing the scheme, he's doing what he's supposed to do. But he can't cover the guy that you're wanting him to cover because schematically his responsibility changes and the offense can dictate it. So if you're getting a guy like that and the offense can dictate when he covers their best receiver and when he doesn't, it's going to be tough for him to have the kind of impact that he would need to have to make him worthy of 2 first-round picks being traded. That's what I'm trying to say to these fans. Not that, oh man, Sauce Gardner isn't a good player. Sauce Gardner is a great player. But in order for him to have the kind of impact that he needs to have, the scheme has to change. And they're like, well, we have another good corner, Charvarius Ward. No question you're doing. Charvarius can definitely play man. But can the safeties? Can the linebackers? That's when it gets crazy, Mitchell. Like, this team has been built for a while. And if you're talking Ballard's been building this for a while, he hasn't been building a man-to-man defense. You got good pass rushers, but these are good guys in zone coverage, smart players. Kenny Moore is a smart player. He can play man-to-man, but he makes a ton of plays in zone. And to change the entire scheme and think, oh, it's going to just work because of one guy, it's not how it's going to happen. So I say all that to say this is a really good team with or without Sauce Gardner. But in order for him to be most effective, you have to isolate him. You have to give him that matchup. And they're going to have to draw up some schemes and maybe bastardize this scheme a little bit to allow him to thrive in the way he needs to thrive, to be impactful in the way he can be. But that's my 2 cents. What do I know? I didn't play this game at a high level, Mitchell. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Richard, you know a lot more than people give you credit, and there's no question about it. Indianapolis secondary, though, I mean, you touched on Charvarius Ward and Kenny Moore and obviously Sauce, but they also got Bynum, who they scooped up in free agency. So this team's loaded with talent.
I like Bynum, too. Bynum is the king of these celebrations. But
Bynum's nasty. I mean, they got a really good defensive backcourt. I like the Colts a lot. I can now see why they're 8-2. I was confused, 6-7 weeks in, Richard. I was very confused. But now I'm seeing the light with Indy, and they go overseas and take care of business against Atlanta, who desperately needs a win. And you got to tip your cap to them. But next week's the game. Next week we see whether they truly are AFC favorites. Because I tell you what, Richard, if they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it might be time to pencil them just that. Let's get into some other games, Richard. We're going to do a little 2-minute drill here and hit some other games. The Baltimore Ravens were on the road against the Minnesota Vikings, who went into Detroit and took care of my Detroit Lions last week. The Baltimore Ravens are now getting healthy. Lamar Jackson's back, but that offense did not look like it normally looks. Very stagnant, especially in that first half. We saw 4 field goals kicked early. And it was one of these games that, you could easily have seen the Baltimore Ravens losing, but they end up squeaking out a win. They're now 4-5. The Steelers keep winning. Do you see a world? I know we've talked about it a number of times this year, but is it your belief still that the Baltimore Ravens are going to win this division?
I don't know, Mitchell. Because they need help. And anytime it's a situation where a team needs help, it's unpredictable. I couldn't have predicted the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Indianapolis Colts in the way they did, in the fashion that they did, and their defense playing at the level that it did because the tape didn't say it. They would be playing at that level. But they did. And so are they starting to wake up at the right time and play elite football? Potentially. So they have the lead right now. Can the Baltimore Ravens climb back and make the playoffs? I think they can because certain teams are going to stumble. What are the Chargers going to do without their 2 all-world tackles? It looks like Joe Alt's now out for the season after re-spraining his ankle. Rashawn Slater was already down. And that offense looks entirely different without Joe Alt in the fold, without Omarion Hampton, without Najee Harris. So can they protect Herbert enough for him to be effective? Can that defense stand up and create enough plays and turnovers? We'll see tonight. But those are the questions I have to answer because you see teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I told y'all, Trevor Lawrence ain't the answer. I told y'all, $55 million. He was 13 for what? 13 for 23, 158, a tug, and an interception. And he gave as many touchdowns to his team as he did the other team, Mitchell. But that's a story for a different day. We're not going to waste time on that game. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But Jacksonville fans, just leave me alone, please. Thank you. I liked your defense. I liked what they were doing, but we all knew this was an inevitability. Liam Cohen can only save your quarterback for so long. He can only spoon feed him for so long. Eventually, teams are going to say, "Hey, let's just start disguising and not show our look until after 15 seconds in the headset goes off and see what Trevor Lawrence can do, because he'll be who he always is." But whatever, you guys want to defend 55 million, whatever, no tax in Jacksonville, good for him. His family will be taken care of for a lifetime. I'm sure he'll buy a house in Jacksonville. But if you're talking about who's going to make the playoffs, that's going to factor in. Do the Houston Texans climb back in it? Them being able to win with their backup quarterback, Davis Mills, that matters. Can they buy time for C.J. Stroud to come back? And there's a lot of questions that are up in the air, and a lot of things that are going to go one way or the other soon. Are the Buffalo Bills going to continue to play well? Or are they going to flounder? I don't know. We're going to see.
We shall see. Another surprise is a Chicago Bears team. They're now 6-3, but the New York Giants came into Chicago and were handling the Bears early until Jackson Dart got knocked out with that concussion. Jackson Dart, to me, looks like, again, and I'm going to stand on my words from earlier, he looks like he should have been the number one pick last year in my eyes. He has transformed this New York Giants team. He's changed the energy. He's changed the culture of this organization. And only, this is his fifth start of the year or something like that. Unfortunately, he goes down and Russell Wilson comes in and they lose the game. But Chicago, I mean, credit to them, down 2 scores. They come back and they find a way to win. Caleb Williams with a 17-yard rushing TD to end the game. The Bears started 0-2, Rich, got absolutely blown out by my Detroit Lions in Ford Field. Ben Johnson's coming home party, and they're 5-1 since. It's wild. I can't even believe it. But they're 6-3 now on the season. Remarkable.
Yeah, they're finding a way to win these ugly games and give themselves a chance at the end. That's what good teams do. I'm sure Ben Johnson is like, hey, these are good habits to be learning. Their defense is fighting. Their offense is fighting. They're always within a score, except obviously that blowout. And they're always in it at the end. And that says something about your team. Like, give them a chance. And it's growth for Caleb Williams. It's growth for Ben Johnson and the rest of the Chicago Bears team. They picked up all these new offensive linemen. It takes a while for that to gel and cohesion and all that. Some of these offensive lines, like when Detroit's offensive line had been together for a long time with all those really good offensive linemen, they played really good. They ran the ball well. They pass protected well. It's just like Dallas Cowboys a few years ago when they had Tyron Smith and they had all these all-pros. And it's like, oh, man, they've played together for a while. It's going to look good. Roma Dunze starting to find his rhythm. 6 receptions for 86 yards. They spent a lot of draft capital on the offense and their defense playing well enough. But before Jackson Dart went out with the concussion, they were in control of this game. The Giants were in control, total control of this game. He goes out. They insert Russell Wilson. He goes 3 for 7 for 45 yards. And the offense kind of sputtered. And the offense sputtered. And there was a play in that game. And I remember Greg Olson making a point to say something about it. And you guys are probably wondering how I watch all these games at the same time. I work hard. But it was 4th and goal at the 1. And they were going to kick a field goal. And there was a penalty on the field goal. And the Giants declined it. And Olson said, if they lose this game, they're going to look back at this play as the reason, as a big changing point. And they lose by 4 points. And that was a 4-point swing. They were at the half-yard line, 4th and goal, up 7. And they didn't go for it. They didn't go for the score. Half a yard. You couldn't get half a yard. And if Jackson Dart was in and at the helm, they would have went. And so it's a bit on Daboll because you change your play calling based on who's that quarterback. A half a yard is a half a yard is a half yard. You got to believe you can get it regardless of who's that quarterback. And Russell Wilson could QB sneak, or you can turn around and hand the ball off to Tyrone Tracy. Regardless, you got to be able to get a half yard. And I think that's the issue right now. But if you're a Giants fan, you appreciate understanding you have a building block and Jackson Dart and Scatterboo. You got some exciting pieces. Slayton had a good game in this game. Your defensive line is all world. Your secondary is starting to play better. I'm sure you'll draft more and pick up in free agency, but there are some building blocks. But you want to be picking high in the draft. You don't want to have a bad season and then be mid bad. You don't want to have a bad season and then be picking 11. Like, if you're going to have a bad season, show promise and then pick top three. Show that we could have won all these games. They could have won all these games. It was just like Denver that year. They were like 1-6 in one score games, and they still went to the playoffs. They were 10-7. They could have been freaking damn near perfect season. But when you lose these games and you show competitive vigor, you show that it's going to still build winning habits. I think they have guys that believe this team can be a really good team. And a few plays here and there, they could have won a lot of these games. And they beat a division opponent. They beat the Eagles when they were somewhat healthy. But then you get Malik Neighbors. There's so many building blocks. There's so much reason for optimism going forward. And if they can get another high draft pick and make it work, sky's the limit. But is Daboll going to be there? We'll see. We'll see what Mara does.
We'll see. No question about it, Richard. I echo those statements. I love New York. I think next year they're going to be a team that people are going to have their eyes on. I think, they're probably going to be picking top 5 in this draft. We'll see what they do. But like you said, with Malik Neighbors back and Cam Scatterbu back, I guarantee you they run that ball on 4th and 1 or 4th and a half of a yard if Cam Scatterbu's back there. But Richard, Jackson Dart is starting to take some criticism for the amount of hits he's taken. Ryan Clark thinks he's taken way too many hits. We saw him in the medical tent, a couple weeks ago when Daboll and Scatterbu both got fined for going in there and checking on him. And now we see him go out with a big hit he suffered on a run and resulting in what is assumed to be a concussion. A lot of young quarterbacks seem to go through this process where they think that they just got to run and not care about their bodies. But the reality is Jackson Dart, if he wants to help his team, he's got to be available. And right now, ultimately, that hit cost them the game in my eyes. What are your thoughts on the way Jackson Dart is playing, his playing style? Do you think he needs to tone it down a bit?
Well, the games will teach you the lessons that nobody else can, Mitchell. A bought lesson is better than a taught lesson. And he just bought a lesson this game. He learned it. He learned it. Ryan Clark is saying that for a reason. And then the game taught him the lesson. And I'm sure he'll change the way he plays, whether it's sliding early. Do I think he won't run the football anymore? No, that's part of his game. That's part of what makes him attractive to Daboll to draft him. Being able to use his legs and make plays with his legs and be dynamic in that way. But I think he's going to be more aware of, hey, slide when necessary. Hey, when you got enough, hey, you got 8-9 yards, that's enough. Get down. It's better to have you for the next play than to lose you for the game when we have this game won. We're in control of this game. You're at the helm. We can easily win this game. And you go down and the whole dynamic, the whole energy of the game, the whole energy of the team shifts immediately. And again, a bought lesson is better than a taught lesson, and he bought it.
Richard, final game. I know you don't want to talk about him, Trevor Lawrence. You already said 13 receptions for 28, 158 yards. But the matter of the fact of this game is the Houston Texans go into this game undermanned without their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, down 29-10 going into the fourth quarter, and they scored 26 unanswered. Come back and win, led by Davis Mills, Stanford alum, Stanford brethren, Richard. The Cardinal. Yes. You got to love the Cardinal. See that. I mean, talk to me about him. Talk to me about Derek Stingley Jr., a friend of the program, quickly rising to stardom as one of the best corners in this league. Huge one-handed interception to win this game. You got to tip your cap to the Houston Texans with this comeback win without their guy C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, you got to give them a lot of credit. A very tough, gritty divisional win. They had a really tough game against the Jacksonville Jaguars that could have went either way earlier in the season. They weren't able to score 36 points in that game. I think that game ended 17-13 or something like that. The Jags were able to pull it off. They got some critical turnovers. And usually this Houston Texans defense is much stingier than this. But give Derek Stingley a ton of credit. That was one of the best plays I've ever seen a DB, a corner make, a one-handed interception. He's been playing as what looks like the top corner in the National Football League, but you can't forget about the defensive player out there of the year out there in Denver, and Pat Surtain. He's on the shelf right now, but he's always got his name in that hat. But right now, give Derek Stingley all the credit and respect he deserves. That was an incredible play, and it helped spark this comeback win that they had against the division opponent. But As always, I talk about Trevor Lawrence. You couldn't tell who the $55 million quarterback was in this game because somebody probably shouldn't be getting $55 million. But, who played better? Did he get outplayed by Davis Mills? Some would say that. I would say that. But who am I? I'm just a humble servant. Again, I don't think he's the answer in Jacksonville. I think they're squandering a really good defense, and now Jacksonville's attacked me for saying their defense is good because they gave up 26 unanswered. Well, pick your poison, Jacksonville fans. I really don't care either way. But you lost this game to the Houston Texans. You're 5-4 now. It looks like again. I think there's going to be a conversation about bringing Mac Jones back next year. Like, do they want to make that trade? Look, because Mac Jones was playing comparable football, if not better football than Trevor Lawrence with this same cast of characters. So do they look at that as an option? Will he be different with Liam Cohen? Who knows? But I just don't see the growth that you want to see from a quarterback making the kind of money. And I know people are like, you're always talking about money because it matters. Because it matters. Like, if you're paying these kind of guys this kind of money, it comes with this kind of criticism. You don't get if I'm getting paid top cornerback money and I'm playing average, the criticism I would expect. Every top guy that's getting top money is getting top criticism too. You don't get top money and then be like, oh, we're going to treat him like he's a rookie quarterback and give him the benefit of the doubt. No, $55 million. You know who else is making that? Burrow. You know who's making less than that? I think Lamar's making less than that. Like, I think Mahomes is making less than that. And Josh Allen might be making less than that or right on par. So if you're in those conversations financially with those guys, and I don't care how the money works, then the criticism is going to come. You expect more. You expect a higher level of play from your quarterback, and definitely not the kind of play that ended the game and Rankins returns that fumble for a touchdown and ends this game in totality. I know you're trying to make a play in this game. You're trying to give your team a chance, but a forced fumble, a fumble into the defense's hands that leads to a touchdown isn't the kind of play you need. Trevor Lawrence was sacked 5 times in the game. So again, the offensive line is an issue, no question about that. But congratulations to the Houston Texans and Derek Stingley on a win. They're going to climb themselves back into conversations about a playoff berth.
And they deserve it.
All odds and lines come from our partners at Hard Rock Bet. We've got the Eagles at the Packers on Monday Night Football tomorrow. Hard Rock Bet has the Packers as a 1-point spread in this game. I think it's going to be a great game. We know how it went last year in the playoffs. These teams are very familiar with each other because of playoff game. You play in a playoff game against somebody, you study them to a T. You know what they do well, what they don't do well. And these teams are a little bit different, but foundationally, they're the same in a lot of respects as they were in that playoff game. I expect Vic Fangio to have a great plan for Jordan Love. I expect Matt LaFleur to have a great plan for this Vic Fangio coach defense. We'll see what A.J. Brown and company do against this pass rush, Lane Johnson and all those guys against this vaunted pass rush from the Green Bay Packers. Mitchell, this is going to be a fun one.
No question about it. And Richard, I'm really excited to see, how the Philadelphia Eagles respond against a big-time opponent in this Green Bay Packers. They're going to lean on their passing game, I feel like. I got a little parlay brewed up for you. I think that Devontae Smith is a good option as an anytime touchdown scorer. He's had a big year. And then I'll be very curious to see how the Packers line up offensively without their main weapon, their safety net, Tucker Kraft. I think they're going to have to lean on their bell cow, Josh Jacobs. And I think he's going to be the guy to get in the end zone first this game. I'm going to lean on him as my first touchdown scorer of the game.
I think that could be a good one, Mitchell. That might be a good parlay. I might have to follow you up, brother.
Well, Richard, this concludes our Week 10 recap. It's crazy to think we're already – is it really Week 10? We're already past the midway point of this season. It's been a great season. There's a lot of parity this year. I think that's my one big takeaway from past the midway point is there's a lot of parity in the NFL in both conferences. And I'm personally really excited to see how it all unfolds in the last 8 weeks of the season. Richard, it's been a heck of a time. I will let you sign us off, my friend.
Oh, well, as always, we appreciate you joining us. We know you could be anywhere in the world getting your football content, but you're here with us, and we sure do appreciate it. Congratulations to the Seahawks fans, the 12s. It's looking like one of those special years. For the faithful, keep your head up. Keep your head up. It'll be a better day one of these days. Hopefully they can get on a 3-game winning streak. Then the whole conversation changes. We'll see. But Detroit, are you the real deal? Hey, we gonna see. We gonna see. Hit that sub button if you're new. See you next time.